Did the Frontier Ever Go Anywhere? By Jacob Pauna. Frederick Jackson Turner's thesis on the American frontier has become one of the most influential and hotly debated pieces of literature in American history. Some of the main points include the idea that the existence of an area of free land, its continuous recession, and the advance of American settlement westward explain American development. Also, the frontier was the meeting point of savagery and civilization, and the line of most rapid Americanization. The taking of the frontier caused an intense American individualism, and with the closing of the frontier the first period of American history ended. Turner based the idea of a closed frontier on the 1890s census, which stated that there was not much continuous frontier remaining. Turner's thesis is still heavily contested even today, and there are some common critiques of it. Native Americans are largely ignored as a people in his thesis, for one. The frontier wasn't conquered by individuals, but rather groups of people. The frontier's description as a land of freedom is not really true other than if you are a white male, and the idea that the frontier was closed may never have been true in the first place. The main article I focus on in this video focuses on this idea. Is there still a frontier? The 1890 U.S. Census in the modern American West is the main article that I focus on. The main idea of the article is that the American frontier still exists, despite Turner's thesis. They say, "We argue that the story of the American frontier has not yet ended, that the characterization of it as having altogether disappeared has been misleading. It didn't disappear, it only changed," they say. After spending nearly the entire 19th century shifting quickly west, the frontier gradually moved east to the point where large stretches of the Great Plains have now reverted to frontier. Lang and colleagues then examined the 1890 census since it was the basis for Turner's thesis. At the time, the census classified lands in three ways: wilderness, or vacant lands, that is unsettled land with less than 2 people per square mile; frontier settlement, with between 2 and 6 people per square mile; and fully settled places, with 6 or more people per square mile. So, it was in 1890 that they declared, the frontier line has disappeared, so that the settled area has become the rule, and the unoccupied place is the exception. This declaration largely ignored the fact that the population distribution in the West, former frontier, was not distributed well, and there were large areas with no human population. Still, it was not the census that formally declared that the frontier was closed. Turner did that. The westward expansion by settlers was not a uniform line, but rather many separate tendrils of expansion. The main centers were in the big cities, and the West's subsequent population gains mostly involved growth around these widely dispersed locations. The region's population was not distributed comparatively evenly. It did not follow the Eastern model. Over time, the already not extremely spread out population began to move out of the wilderness and into the city, because of the difficulty of life on the plains. This added to the empty expanses of land. And so in the 1990s, most of the nation's late 19th century frontier remained intact. The western frontier produced distinctive settlement, big cities with large, sparsely occupied surroundings. Also over time, the frontier moved further east than it had ever been. The map on the left shows all the lands that would be considered frontier according to the 1890 census criteria in black. As you can see, there's still a lot of black areas. Using GIS, I created a GIF showing population expansion from 1790 to 1890. The numbers are simply based on population figures for each county. As you can see, as time goes by, the Great Plains area gradually loses the population it gains early on, reflecting the idea of the eastward expanding frontier Lang and his colleagues mention. Due to the seemingly continuous depopulation of the West and the regrowth of frontier lands, some advocate the creation of a Buffalo Commons. The Buffalo Commons will become the world's largest historic preservation project, the ultimate national park. Most of the Great Plains will become a vast landmass largely empty and unexploited. The idea of the Buffalo Commons is hotly contested as well due to its unflinching critique of living in the western frontier. It has caused anger amongst those who call that area home. Time will tell whether the Buffalo Commons will come to be. Thoughts? I agree with Lang and his colleagues. The frontier is definitely alive and growing. To me, the census's idea of the frontier seemed arbitrary in the first place, so that pokes a hole in Turner's thesis, in my opinion. While Turner's thesis has been an important piece of work in American history, I feel that it is outdated in its thought processes and a bit arbitrary as well.